Hey, welcome. So, we live in this world that's just constantly yelling at us, right? Be seen, be visible, build your personal brand. But today, we're going to flip that on its head and explore a kind of weird idea. What if true authenticity isn't found in the spotlight, but back in the shadows? We're going to dig in and ask, in this hyper-visible world of ours, who's the real phony?
All right, let's kick this off with a line that has stuck around for decades. You've probably heard it, Holden Caulfield's famous complaint. It just perfectly captures that feeling that so much of what we see out there is, well, an act, a performance. And that really sets the stage for the big question we're tackling. What does it even mean to be authentic anymore? To really get to the bottom of this, we have to look at the guy who actually created Holden Caulfield, the legendary and famously private author J.D. Salinger. His life is this wild case study and just completely rejecting public life. I mean, after he published The Catcher in the Rye, Salinger's fame was just mythic. It was enormous. But the bigger his celebrity got, the less he seemed to care. Until he just vanished. Poof. He dropped off the world's radar like a ghost.
And look, this wasn't just him being a little shy. Salinger was a deeply, deeply unconventional guy. He absolutely despised the media. He was into all this fringe health stuff, and he seemed dead set on practically erasing his own personal history. He was choosing a path that had nothing to do with what anyone expected of him. So, why? Why would someone at the absolute peak of their career just choose silence? Well, Salinger's own words give us a pretty massive clue. And this quote, this is everything. It gets right to the heart of it. See, he never stopped writing. He actually wrote a ton. He just stopped publishing. It was never about hating his work. It was about protecting that private, almost sacred space where he created it, from the prying eyes of the public. So here's the big idea. Salinger's retreat, his disappearance, it was basically a huge philosophical statement. He believed that real growth, real discovery, happens on the inside. It's not some performance you put on for an audience. His whole life was proof of this principle, that the only way out is in. And wow, is that different from our culture today? Okay, so let's bring Salinger's whole philosophy into our world right now. Because in the age of the internet, we have this very modern problem. Creators who decide to stay anonymous, faceless, they get a very specific kind of heat for it.
And this is where the conflict really is. On one side, you have people demanding to see a face. The assumption is that if you're anonymous, you must be dishonest, you have something to hide. But on the other side is this powerful counter-question. Is that face you see online really authentic, or is it just another carefully managed performance? Which brings us right back to, who is the real phony here? And this has created such a bizarre situation. Authenticity itself has become a product you can sell. You have all these influencers and online gurus selling courses on how to be your true self, which really just means you learn a different kind of performance, one that's just better at looking genuine. So let's really dig into the other side of the argument. The idea that maybe, just maybe, real authenticity demands that we step away from this constant pressure to seem like we're authentic. The French philosopher Albert Camus just nails it with this one. He basically says the moment you try to seem authentic, you've already lost. The performance completely kills the reality of just being. The American poet Wallace Stevens had a really similar, kind of beautiful way of putting it. He's saying that our true self, that unperformed state of just being, that should be the final word, not the mask we show to the world. And this view, it really gets to that rebel spirit, If the biggest trend right now is this kind of performative authenticity, then maybe true individuality, like Clint Eastwood is saying here, means you have to go in the total opposite direction, away from the imitation and back toward privacy. So what's the real danger here? What's the cost of living your life like you're always on stage? Well, a famous poem by T.S. Eliot gives us this incredibly powerful and honestly kind of creepy metaphor for it. This whole process is, well, it's chilling. First, the eyes of the world are on you, constantly. Then you get formulated. You're shoved into a neat little box with a simple label. Pretty soon, you're like an insect pinned to a board, wriggling there for everyone to inspect. And once that happens, your freedom to be anything else, to change, to grow, it's just gone. You're trapped by your own public persona. And this is where the psychologist Carl Jung comes in to remind us what the actual goal of life is. It's not about creating some perfect public image. It's about this deeply personal journey of becoming who you're really meant to be. And a journey like that, it requires freedom.
So here's the bottom line. Life is change. A person who is constantly changing is a person who is truly alive. And when we create a fixed, static public identity for everyone to see, we risk this kind of spiritual death. We sacrifice the very privacy we need to evolve. Which leaves us with one last kind of funny thought to chew on. You know Kafka's character, Gregor Samsa, the guy who woke up one day as a giant bug? If he had spent his whole life documenting every single moment online, would he regret it? In our endless, frantic quest to be seen, are we accidentally sacrificing the one thing we need to actually live? The freedom to become something completely new?